Polling for units that have synergy with existing characters on your account has been one of the primary factors that influences a player's poll decisions, but the release of Cantarella changes everything because her Resonator showcase alone will probably make you sell your house for additional copies of her sequences.
Delicious.
What do you mean by that?
In case you're new here on the channel, welcome to Cantarella's character breakdown video, which belongs to the character breakdown series where we build and test your favorite resonators to provide you with the most effective way to use them in Withering Waves. I usually start with a brief pros and cons of every character, but there's a lot to unpack in this particular video concerning her kit, including flaws that I have identified after playtesting and tips and tricks that can help you play her more effectively. So I'll address them as we go over her kit, and then I'll add the usual build, team options, and rotations. Before we get into her kit breakdown, here's a quick rotation showcase with Jinxie. Let's get right into her kit breakdown, starting with Heavy Attack Delusive Dive. When you have at least one Forte stack called Trance, as you can see right here, holding your basic attack button will perform Delusive Dive, sending Cantarella into the Mirage State that lasts for 8 seconds. Keep in mind that she can be in the Mirage State even when you swap to another character. When you're not in Mirage, your normal skill called Graceful Step will do 2 instances of damage, as you can see right here, and regenerate 1 Forte stack or Trance. But when you're in the Mirage State, a new skill becomes available called Flickering Reverie. Casting this skill is considered an echo skill cast, so be sure to keep that in mind, and it will send the enemy into the Hazy Dream state, lasting for 6.5 seconds. What Hazy Dream does is basically create a bubble around the enemy and slows down their movement. When Cantarella does damage to an enemy in Hazy Dream, it triggers Jolt, which will pop the bubble and deal damage to the enemy. Keep in mind that Hazy Dream can persist even when you're not in the Mirage State, and attacks from other teammates will not trigger Jolt but rather remove the Hazy Dream effect. So it's better to always pop the bubble with Cantarella instead to do more damage. If you're enjoying the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe because it helps me out more than you know. Forte Circuit. When you're in the Mirage State, your basic attack becomes Phantom Sting, which can be used in midair with 3 separate stages. This is stage 1, this is stage 2, and this is stage 3. The third stage will trigger 3 coordinated attacks to hit the enemy. Every time each stage of Phantom Sting hits the enemy, you consume Trance to gain a new set of stacks that you can see right here called Shiver. Consuming Trance also heals all party members, which scales off Cantarella's attack, increasing your team's survivability, but you can take it a bit further by running Rejuvenating Glow on Cantarella and Moonlit on Jeji in a Jinxie Double Dragon Nuke team composition, so that you can always intro with Jinxie from Cantarella and Jeji to nuke the enemy. I'm still doing more tests with this team comp, so I'll go in depth in a separate video. You can also press the jump button while in midair, which will let her do a plunge attack called Abysmal Vortex and consumes 1 Trance to generate 1 stack of Shiver. Per my testing, this is very useful if you're running Moonlit because Cantarella's abilities that are available to her in the Mirage State mostly sends her in midair, and her concerto energy can be filled fully while you're in midair, so you can use Abysmal Vortex to plunge to the ground and use echo skills like Impermanence Heron, since it can only be used when the resonator is on the ground. When you have 3 stacks of Shiver, a special skill will be available called Perception Drain with a very large scaling, considered as echo skill cast, but deals basic attack damage that can be cast in midair as well. Casting it will deal 2 instances of damage and apply the Hazy Dream effect to the enemy, which you can then follow up with Phantom Sting or Abysmal Vortex to trigger Jolt before Cantarella leaves the field. Perception Drain will also heal all party members as well, which scales off her attack. At S0, Cantarella does not have any anti-interruption when she uses Perception Drain, so you can easily get interrupted while in the startup animation. Dodging in the middle of the startup animation of Perception Drain will also cancel the attack, so you get punished for just trying to survive or dodge. If you try to cancel the animation by swapping out of it with an intro skill to another character, you will also lose the basic attack buff from her weapon if you have it, so her damage output will be very low. However, you still gain the Concerto Energy Ace Regenerate the moment you cast the Perception Drain skill. I don't usually cover sequences in my character breakdown videos because they are mostly not needed, but I'll have to make an exception for Cantarella since her S1 provides anti-interruption when she casts her Perception Drain skill, which is a huge quality of life change, especially if you're a casual player. But not having her S1 does not render her unplayable. You just need a little bit of game knowledge by knowing when it's safe to use Perception Drain. Cantarella also has a special passive called Abyssal Rebirth, which lets her gain 6 Concerto energy up to 6 times whenever resonators in the team use echo skills, and this applies to Cantarella's Liberation, Flickering Reverie, and Perception Drain as well, since they are considered echo skills. You can trigger this effect 6 times, and this means that even after Cantarella leaves the field, your teammate's echo skills will allow her to gain Concerto energy, which is pretty amazing. Resonance Liberation. Using her Resonance Liberation will do damage to the enemy, considered as echo skill cast but deals basic attack damage, and will grant her 3 Forte stacks or trance. After the casting animation, damage from other resonators in the team will summon Dreamweavers or simply coordinated attacks triggered once per second, which are considered as basic attack damage lasting for 30 seconds or when you've triggered up to 21 of them in total. She also has a special intro skill called Tidal Surge, which is only available when she's in the Mirage State, summoning 3 coordinated attacks, but don't pay too much attention to this skill because the damage doesn't scale off basic attack damage after testing. Team options. Cantarella is Concerto efficient and deals decent damage as well, so you can pair her with any DPS character that scales off resonance skill damage or have the Havoc attribute due to her outro skill. These DPS characters include Chisha, Carlotta, Jinxie, Havoc Rover, Spectral Rover, or even Camellia if you don't have Rocher or S6 Sanwa on your account. Build. For her weapon options, I already covered them in detail in her weapon pool value analysis, but to cover them briefly, here's what you need to know. If you can't afford to pull for her signature weapon, Zeji's signature should take higher priority due to the crit damage substat that pairs well with the crit rate on her skill tree, and she can obtain 2 stacks of the basic attack buff, but not all 3 stacks because the Perception Drain is considered echo skill cast by default, making the third part of the passive useless. The second priority is String Master. She can also obtain 2 stacks of the attack buff from the passive, but she can't use the third part of the passive because what it actually does is to give the wielder 48% attack buff when they trigger resonance skill damage off field with their coordinated attacks, for example. And since Cantarella's coordinated attacks are considered basic attack damage, the third part of the passive is useless on her. The third priority should be Cosmic Ripples. The energy region from the passive comes in very handy in Jinxie teams, and I will explain why this is so very shortly. She can also maintain all the 5 stacks of the basic attack buff when she's off the field, since her coordinated attacks will continuously refresh the stacks, but do keep in mind that building a decent crit ratio can be difficult because of the attack percentage substat, which is why it takes third priority. The worst ones include Augment from the Battle Pass and Fusion Accretion. Stay away from Jinjo Keeper if possible. For her echoes, I generally recommend Moonlit Clouds since Moonlit mainly buffs your main DPS with a 12% damage boost from Impermanence Heron and 22.5% attack buff from the 5-piece effect. Stats should be crit rate and crit damage on the 4 cost depending on what you're lacking, double Havoc damage bonus on the 3 cost when using any 5-star weapon, but go with attack and Havoc damage bonus if you're using a 4-star weapon. The 1 cost should be attack main stats. When using her in a Jinxie team, you will encounter some resonance energy problems on Cantarella due to Jinxie's low on-field time, but for those on Moonlit Clouds, you can still get away with double Havoc damage bonus since Impermanence Heron provides 10 resonance energy and the 2-piece Sonata effect provides energy regen. You can also rotate your team in a way that can help you mitigate her resonance energy issues, which I'll cover at the rotation section of this video. The issue with Empyrean Anthem set is that Cantarella's coordinated attacks cannot make use of the weapon buffs while she's off the field, so the coordinated attack buff from Empyrean Anthem is not worth it since it will not be further buffed from the basic attack bonus from her weapon. But if you're using a high refinement Cosmic Ripples, it becomes a viable option to use since the basic attack buff stacks up even when she's off the field. But if you're using Judge's Signature or String Master, it's better to stick with Moonlit Clouds. Midnight Veil is recommended if you're running her with Havoc DPS characters like Havoc Rover. It'll buff her overall personal damage by giving her 10% Havoc damage bonus from the 2-piece, and the 5-piece will do decent damage whenever she outro from the field, and buffs the incoming Resonator's Havoc damage bonus by 15%. The 4-cost should be Lorelei since it buffs her Havoc damage and basic attack damage bonus by just equipping it on your main slot, which is this one right here. The stats should be crit damage or crit rate on the 4-cost depending on what you're lacking, and double Havoc damage 3-cost if you're using a 5-star weapon. If you're using a 4-star weapon, go with attack and Havoc damage bonus to make up for the low base attack. Keep in mind that while Cantarella has some energy issues, you don't need an energy regen 3-cost when running her with Midnight Veil because your Havoc DPS character will spend a decent amount of time on the field, which recovers more resonance energy when compared to a Jinxie team, so you just need to know exactly when to use your Liberation, which will be pretty early in the first rotation and right after your Havoc DPS is done doing damage. Talent priority should be Forte Circuit, Liberation, Skill, and Basic Attack. Now let's move on to rotations. For the sake of keeping this video short, I'll be covering her Jinxie Hypercarry rotations for now, and other teams like Double Dragon Jinxie and Havoc Rover in separate videos. Here's the build that I'm currently running on my entire team. Here's a simple graphical representation of what you need to do, which is exclusive to Cantarella when she's on the field. We first start by using Cantarella's Liberation and Skill to gain some resonance energy. Swap to Shorekeeper, use our Liberation and Skill as well. Using it early ensures that we don't run into Liberation cooldown and resonance energy issues due to Jinxie's low on-field time, which generates very little resonance energy for the entire team. Swap to Jinxie, do basic attacks until Overflowing Radiance becomes available. Cast it and cancel the animation with our Liberation. Do basic attacks and nuke the enemy with her Dragon Nuke skill, which will increase the Forte stacks she can recover after an intro skill. Intro with Shorekeeper and fill her Concerto energy. Use her Echo skill and intro with Cantarella. Use her skill for resonance energy recovery, heavy attack to use Delusive Dive, skill, do basic attacks until you get 3 points of Shiver and use Perception Drain. Now you can use Abysmal Vortex to land on the ground and use her Echo skill. Intro with Jinxie, skill, basic attacks until her Dragon Nuke becomes available. Here I intentionally reserve the nuke damage for the monkey boss by using Druid to clear the rest of the mob enemies. After Jinxie's nuke, intro with Shorekeeper, swap to Cantarella to use her Liberation, which will be available by then, and use her skill to recover resonance energy. Now repeat the cycle by swapping to Shorekeeper to use her skill and Liberation to gain her outro skill. In the third rotation, you just need to use her skill and some basic attacks to fully recharge her Liberation, as you guys can see right here. Your main focus is to use Cantarella's Liberation early, like I did in this showcase, regardless of the team that you're running, or else you'll have to substitute one of her 3-costs with Energy Regen. Also keep in mind that you need to use Perception Drain every rotation, even if your Concerto energy gets full from dodges, because using it regenerates a decent amount of resonance energy, as you guys can see right here. That'll be all for Cantarella's character breakdown. Expect more videos on rotation breakdown for Double Dragon Jinxie and Havoc Rover very soon on the channel. If YouTube got it right, you should like this video that pops up on your screen, so be sure to give it a watch and join our Discord community if you're having any issues with the game or you just want a place to chill or hang out. Link will be in the video description. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.